In this video, Joel is going to go through with us 20 mistakes even great parents make when trying to discipline their children.
An awareness of what we don't want to be doing helps us move towards what we do want to be doing. Discipline becomes consequence-based instead of teaching-based. We want to avoid that. If we're not having something we're teaching, then our discipline is off. We're just giving consequences. It's not discipline, it's just consequences. The other piece here is that thinking that we can't be warm and nurturing. Connection-based discipline or effective discipline happens when we can say yes to the child and show that we care. We're not saying yes to more tech time. We're not saying yes to whatever they're having a tantrum. We have to be firm and we have to be following through. If we ask a child to get off the technology or tech time or put something away, or they can't have a snack and they're having a meltdown, at that point we cannot give in. We can't be warm and nurturing and say, okay, Johnny, you can have 5 more minutes. No way. If you say it's over, it's over. But we can't say, hey, I'm sorry, it must be frustrating, it's over. We can do something else. And of course, providing warnings and times. Even for our 3-year-old, if we say, Jayla, 5 more minutes on the computer, then we're shutting it down. And it really helps our daughter when she has the autonomy to shut it down. I'm learning this even from my wife, because we learn things from each other, right? Sometimes I'd want to close the computer, and that would make her very upset. I create a red zone situation for no need at all, where if I say, Jayla, time to shut the technology, close the computer lid, please. It might take her 20 seconds, but she much prefers to close it herself. So that is really important, as much as possible, putting your child in the driver's seat. We get to be firm on our expectations and our boundaries, and we also have to follow through, but being flexible and fair is important. So if it takes 20 seconds longer for my daughter to come to terms with closing the screen versus me shutting it and her getting into a meltdown, flexibility is much preferred and wise. So being flexible is saying yes to the child, but no to the behavior and still having those clear consequences. Confusing consistency with rigidity, exactly like we talked about. That's the flexibility piece there. Talking too much. Short, concise. If a child's in the red zone, it's a no-talk zone. We have to wait till they're regulated. If it's the yellow zone, very short modeling and coaching. We can really only have a full-blown conversation or really dialoguing in the green zone. So make sure we remember that. Focusing too much on the behavior and not enough on the reason why. Exactly. So being able to focus on the size of problem or why a child acted that way and really unpacking that piece. Focusing on how we say what we say, that's so important. Making sure that we're in the green zone or we're delivering and communicating from a more calm and regulated state. We can see number 7 here is communicating that our children shouldn't experience big or negative feelings. That's really important. You're allowed to feel even angry or upset. We can't always be in the green zone. Some people take zones of regulation and say, what can we do to get back to green? That's not always the solution. We have a feelings rainbow. We feel all the feelings every day, but what we have to do is express our red, angry feelings in an appropriate way that doesn't hurt other people around us. So using our words and actions to express red in a way that's appropriate. Like, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, I want it to go on longer. Thank you for expressing that. It is really frustrating, isn't it? I guess next time I'll have to put a timer on, but how you feel is important and it's valid. So acknowledging feelings while still keeping consistent with what you feel is important or the parameters or guidelines. Overreacting. So we overreact, so our kids focus on our overreactions, not their own actions. I mean, that speaks for itself. We need to stay as much as possible closest to the green zone. We have to be realistic. Sometimes we can be in yellow, but if you're in the red zone, you need to regulate before we discipline or have a conversation with the child. Number 9 is really important. We don't repair. And I think that's a really important piece. As parents, we all make mistakes. One of my close friends, she does some parenting stuff for people across Canada, and she did a really great talk recently on parent guilt. And we all feel guilty sometimes as parents because we all make mistakes. And that's part of what parenting is all about. You know, it's learning and growing. Hopefully we don't make too big of mistakes and we, as much as possible, stay out of the red zone when we're talking to our kids. But at some point, we're all pushed to our limits and we make small mistakes. The key is, though, to repair. To actually afterwards say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't really need to get upset for that. I'm sorry that upset you. Or how did that make you feel? And really processing and asking for forgiveness for our children is so important. and making sure we're doing everything we can to repair or restore that connection. And that's where we can see 9 and 10 are very related. Emotional, reactive moments, realizing we're overreacted. Yeah, definitely, if we do that, we want to go back and repair. Number 11 is really key. We forget that our children may sometimes need help in making good choices and calming themselves down. That goes back to the zones. Recognizing when a child's in the yellow zone, they need our modeling and coaching. We can't expect them to calm down and use their strategies effectively then. And when they're in the red zone, there's no hope for that. So recognizing our zone and the child's zone is the first step to making sure our parenting is on point and informed based on all the child's regulation level. Consider an audience when disciplining or getting trapped in power struggles. Those can be quite related. I find the hardest times for me to discipline is when I'm at, let's say, my parents or my in-laws or other places where there's other people around. And that's where I can kind of get a bit more trapped, possibly in power struggles as well. So for those 2 points there, what I typically do and what we typically do is when our child's having a meltdown in another environment, just calmly, gently take them aside, carry them if you have to another room, and then talk about it there. It just minimizes the potential for those power struggles or the audiences and just helps us to be at our best with parents. We can see number 14 says, we discipline in response to our habits and feelings instead of what the child needs in that moment, and we embarrass our kids by correcting them in front of others. So those 2 points of just recognizing and being mindful. Really, if we're parenting and disciplining from the green zone or green-yellow zone as much as possible, as regulated as possible, we're really able to mitigate the chances of most of these experiences and kind of pitfalls, 20 pitfalls of parenting. Number 16 and 17 are a bit different. We assume the worst before letting our kids explain, and we dismiss our kids' experiences. So that's really important, where we have to give them space to say, hey, you know what color were you feeling? Let's unpack that and let's talk a little bit about that. It's really interesting because often kids will be almost more strict than we will as parents. So once we unpack and talk through their feelings, we can say, what do you think would be a way to make this right? Or what would be an appropriate consequence? And at the end of the day, as parents, we own the house, we make the rules. It's our rules and we have to follow through. But inviting kids to consider their consequence, some children might be silly and say, oh, eating chocolate for a week or something silly, or more video games. But chances are at least half the kids out there will be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I deserve to lose this or that. And it's interesting. Sometimes the child's consequences are stricter than even ours. So keep that in mind as we kind of journey there. And we can see the other pieces are being too hard on ourselves or expecting too much or letting kind of experts trump our own instincts. So recognizing every child's different. So we can't parent like our friend or like someone else. And even you could be a great parent and just doing an awesome job parenting, but your child might not be as responsive to your friend's child or what have you. So every kid's different, so we shouldn't measure or judge ourselves based on how our child's responding, because since every child is so different, parenting looks different for each child, and we need different strategies that are effective, and even the great parenting strategies that work for most kids might not work for some kids who are more complex, and recognizing that. And I always try to encourage parents, if your child's having some difficulties, it might not be you as a parent. If you're doing all the right things, sometimes some children aren't as responsive and require more supports, talking to your family physician, counselor, psychologist, etc. as well, reaching out.
Thanks for watching this video. We hope you got something out of it. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button.